Someone you love is gone. The body is there, but the person is not. And you don't know what to do. You don't know where to look. You don't know what to say. That feeling, that paralysis, is not weakness. It is one of the oldest things about you. For a very long time, scientists assumed ancient humans didn't think much about death. They assumed that early humans buried their dead the same way animals leave their sick behind, out of practicality, not feeling. They were wrong. And what the evidence actually reveals is something far stranger, far more tender, and far more familiar than anyone expected. Your ancestors were mourning long before they had language to describe what mourning was. The oldest known deliberate burial on Earth dates back roughly 300,000 years. Not 30,000, not 100,000, 300,000 years. In a cave system in South Africa called Rising Star, deep underground, in a chamber accessible only through a narrow passage barely wide enough for a human body, paleoanthropologist Lee Berger and his team discovered the remains of Homo naledi, a small-brained, small-bodied relative of yours, intentionally placed in the earth. Intentionally. Not dropped, not abandoned, placed. And near them, markings on the cave walls, geometric engravings, symbols, something that looked disturbingly like ritual. Homo naledi had a brain roughly 1/3 the size of yours, and yet here they were, hundreds of meters underground, carrying their dead to a specific location, marking the walls, doing something that had no survival value whatsoever. No predator was being avoided, no food was being stored. They were doing something for someone who could no longer benefit from anything. That is the moment the story of human death begins, and it never really ends. Move forward in time. About 100,000 years ago, in a cave on the coast of what is now Israel, a group of early Homo sapiens placed a child in the ground, surrounded by the jaw of a wild boar. Deliberate, specific, symbolic. The jaw wasn't food. It wasn't a tool. It meant something. To whom, we cannot know, but it meant something. Around the same era, at a site called School in Israel, adults were buried with objects near their hands, objects they had used in life, as if whoever placed them there wanted the dead to have something for wherever they were going. Anthropologist Francesco De Rico, who has spent decades studying the cognitive origins of symbolic behavior, calls this evidence of a mind capable of thinking beyond the present moment. A mind that can imagine a future. A mind that understands that something which was here is now gone, and that this matters. Your ancestors were not just disposing of bodies, they were telling a story about where the dead go. Fast forward again. Roughly 26,000 years ago, in what is now Sungir, Russia, archaeologists uncovered a burial site that stopped the field cold. 3 individuals, an older man, a young girl, and a young boy, were placed in the earth wearing clothes decorated with more than 13,000 hand-carved ivory beads. 13,000. Each bead took roughly 45 minutes to make. The math is staggering. Someone, or many someones, spent the equivalent of years of labor decorating the bodies of the dead. The children were buried head to head. The old man was buried alone, with 2 mammoth ivory spears laid beside him, straightened by a technique that scientists still don't fully understand. These were not subsistence behaviors. These people were not surviving. They were grieving. They were honoring. They were doing something that cost them enormous amounts of time and energy and effort with zero practical return. And the reason they were doing it, the reason your ancestors have always done it, is because of something that lives in you right now. You cannot accept that a person simply stops. Psychologist Thomas Attig, one of the leading researchers on grief theory, describes mourning as the process of learning to love someone in a new way. Not the cessation of the relationship, the transformation of it. When someone dies, you don't lose the relationship, you lose the form. And the human brain, which evolved to track people across time and space, which evolved to maintain bonds across distance and absence, does not know how to simply turn that off. It was never designed to. That is why, in virtually every culture ever studied, the dead are not treated as objects. They are treated as people in transition. The Neanderthals, your evolutionary cousins who disappeared around 40,000 years ago, placed flowers on their dead. Or so was suggested by the famous Shanidar cave discovery in Iraq, where pollen was found clustered around a burial. The interpretation has been debated, but what has not been debated is that Neanderthal burials across Europe show evidence of careful positioning, of bodies placed in fetal positions, of ochre, a red pigment coating the bones, red, the color of blood.